with that, I will take questions, and I already see one on the board. As you know, there is a chat function that we have here alongside my screen that will allow you to type in questions if you have them for me. So please feel free to do so. So what will potentially higher taxes under a Biden administration do to the post-pandemic economy? Again, I really think it depends. Number one, I think it depends on whether or not he would move to immediately raise taxes upon taking office. And again, I think that's entirely dependent on the shape of the economic recovery and the speed with which we are recovering. If we are still mired in a minus GDP environment come the first quarter, second quarter of 2021, it's kind of a suicide mission to raise taxes immediately. Now, whether he does it in a targeted basis, and again, focuses solely on corporations in order to fund other initiatives like infrastructure and like funding an additional stimulus and relief package, I think that may have more of an effect on the stock market than it will have on the economy. If you go back to the tax cuts that we saw in 2017, as much as was promised from them, not the least of which was greater employment, which really didn't affect, higher wages, which were on the way as a result of a tighter labor market, and capital spending. Capital spending actually fell, partly because we were going into that trade war with China, and so manufacturing actually entered a recession at one juncture in 2019 and was already beginning to weaken irrespective of the tax cuts. The one thing or two things the tax cuts did in 2018, they raised corporate profits by 26%, 13 percentage points of that was directly the result of the tax cut. And then we saw enormous stock buybacks and dividend increases, which was really kind of what we saw during the Bush administration as well. And I'm not necessarily against tax cuts. I think I favor them if they are constructed properly. And I said at the time I didn't think this particular package was, and I think that was borne out because they really didn't help the economy. And corporations already were not paying a lot in the way of taxes. They're even if their top marginal rate now is 21%, their effective rate is 12%, and we see a lot of large corporations pay 0%. In fact, after this was passed, the percentage of corporate taxes or I should say the amount of corporate taxes as a percentage of federal tax revenues is at a historic low of about 10%, which means individuals are basically financing the tax cuts for corporations. So I think if that could be balanced out and tilt a little of that, and I don't mean this in the redistributionist sense that many would describe as some sort of socialism, but put this more towards productive uses that increase meaningful middle-class employment, I think that would be a good thing. With an infrastructure package most likely coming from either party, would it be more efficient and economically helpful with lower regulations and no project labor agreements versus higher regulations and project labor agreements in place? I have kind of a mixed view of that question. Just going back to living in multiple parts of the country, I've seen infrastructure done well and I've seen infrastructure done poorly. When you get into these no-bid situations where there are 0 regulations, you do tend to get things done rather rapidly, but sometimes not at the highest quality. I know after the 1994 Northridge earthquake in Southern California, the way they structured their repair bills was such that it wasn't no bid. And in fact, the company that came in with the highest quality and the most efficient budget actually was given a bonus for finishing on time and finishing well. And I think we have to really rethink the process of infrastructure bidding and contracting because in some parts of the country, obviously, it's wildly inefficient. Listen, I live in New Jersey, and there's a pothole the size of the state of Montana around the corner from me that I often lose my car in, which hasn't been fixed for over 3 years. And so I think we really have to deal with some of the inefficiencies in the marketplace. Common sense regulation makes some sense. Labor agreements to a point make some sense insofar as we do want to see people have, particularly if they're already out of work and looking for gainful employment, make a wage that will allow them to spend more money, which at the end of the day would help the economy grow more quickly. Look, I'm not for over-regulation in any sense, but I'm also not for under-regulation where, and particularly if you live in my neck of the woods, we have seen very, very shoddy programs put together on occasion. And we've seen some boondoggles take place in New Jersey and New York that are frustrating at best. And again, we haven't also talked about, and this doesn't necessarily apply to you folks, but we haven't talked about alternative materials that can be used for road construction like they use in Northern Europe, where there's recycled plastics and rubber that are put into the roads that allow them to last 3 times longer than roads last in the United States. Clearly, in precast concrete, that's a different story, and it's used in different ways. And in some instances, it's used in road building and actually has greater durability and longevity than other types of materials. So I think we also should be talking about how we go about building things, not just how much they cost and exactly what the agreements are. I think we have to look towards the future to find more efficient ways of upgrading critical infrastructure in the United States so it's more durable, it'll last longer, and we don't have to go through this process as regularly as we do.